Welcome to another weekly news video. There's not a whole lot to talk through today. A couple of little things, no real hanky-panky going on, which is a good thing, but let's just jump straight into it. Now, the first thing I want to talk to is something I spoke about in last week's news video, actually, with regard to that, hobby beef between Santiago Sports and C. Blair's. Sports Card Radio did a live stream yesterday, and they made a few interesting points that I didn't really think about when I first made my video, right? And so if you recall, there was some beef out on the basketball court. They challenged each other. Blair's challenged Santiago to a fight. Santiago then basically said, you know what, let's bust a case of, I think it was flawless baseball, flawless NFL, one of the two. And I said it was pretty cool that they're going to try and do something for charity, right? Sports Card Radio came out, specifically Colin, if I remember correctly, and said, you know what, yeah, it's cool they're doing something for charity, but, pay for it yourself, because you're basically doing this for a tax write-off, which is the perception, right? You're getting other people to pay money for these spots in this break of this case you want to bust, rather than putting it up for yourself. And you're getting a tax write-off on a product you're finding difficult to sell, which is a fairly fair point. And I just wanted to, clarify that again. I really hope these guys can sort of try and do something for charity and get something positive happening out of this, because it was just a bit of, bullshit on the basketball court, nothing super serious. So it'd be good if they could do something for a charity. But what was interesting is that, Tyler Santiago Sports replied to this chain on Sports Card Radio's Instagram. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. But he said a few interesting things that, seemed quite disappointing, right? He basically said he doesn't want to fight Blaze because he's on the spectrum, implying that it's a negative thing, which, he's in pretty poor taste, in my opinion. It looks like the comment has since been deleted, which is, a bit surprising considering how much he was trying to defend the statement. And he basically got grilled in a bunch of different comments. Like I think I've said before on the channel, I'm on the spectrum, right? So I didn't really take offense to it. But, there are kids out there that are in school, as an example, and might not, be super comfortable with how they feel in life, right? People that are on the spectrum typically have certain challenges, whether it's, social interactions or things like that. So the fact you've got a statement like that, can you imagine if there's a kid that follows, Santiago Sports on YouTube, he's got 6,000 subs, they watch him go to card shows, they watch him buy and sell, they have him as like a mentor sort of thing, and then they read a comment like that and they themselves are on the spectrum. It's like, it's not good for kids at that age, right? As you get older, you sort of learn to embrace it and deal with it and manage it in a certain way. But for kids, it's a pretty hard thing to do. So it was very disappointing to see that comment from him. I don't want to hate on him too much because it's a really poor thing to do, but I will say, go check out his, business on YouTube reviews, right? Or sorry, Google reviews, I should say. And you're going to see some commentary from him, right? Some responses from him to some of these customers that do look like they've had legitimate grievances, and he's complained to them in a way that, is very parallel to what you would have seen in this comment that I now can't show you because it looks like he's deleted it. But again, very poor statement. You would have seen Blaze made a follow-up video. Again, this first topic for today is very TMZ, but I just wanted to clarify a few things. Hope these guys can try and do something for charity, right? Bust that case, but don't do it for a tax write-off, as the Sports Card Radio guys said, because as soon as they said that, I was like, okay, that does not look very good, right? You can do something a bit better than that. Now, the next thing is just going to be quickly with regards to my video yesterday. Not a whole lot of people watched it, which is perfectly fine, but it looked like, Panini had stolen the card design from Flair, I should say, Upper Deck. Now, a few people reached out to me afterwards and said, Daniel, I think, like you said in your video with regards to superfractors, gold vinyl, so on and so forth, the material that you think might be copycat, right, that Panini have stolen could just be a standard material that, producers or manufacturers, use on cardstock, as an example, which is the case for superfractors and gold vinyl cards, right? There's a certain engine turn finish on those, as I explained in the video. That's standard within the industry. Same with cracked ice, right? That's the reason why you see Topps use it and Panini use it. They think this sort of fits in the same boat, and based on the multiple people that reached out to me that are sort of experts in this space, leading me to believe it's not so much Panini stealing the design, it's the same vein as, gold vinyl and superfractors, cracked ice, so on and so forth. It's just a pattern of refractor that, the manufacturers leverage that, Panini and Topps use at these printing facilities, right? Because they don't print them themselves, they sort of outsource all of that. Now, the next thing is going to be something very interesting that I saw when I was searching through Golden Auctions, right? Yesterday, their weekly auction ended and I bought a few cards, but I wanted to see what these national landmarks were selling for from World Cup Prism 2022. This Frankie de Jong, or de Jong, how you want to pronounce it. I'm not Dutch, I do apologize. PSA 10. Don't you think that looks a bit off-centered? That's very, very off-centered in my opinion. Not necessarily the player himself, but the background. Now, I did a bit of a deep dive, and every single version of this card that I saw online looked like this or worse. So I'm not sure if PSA have taken the stance, okay, this is what they all look like. It's not necessarily a factory error, but this is how they came from the factory. This is how they're meant to be. So we consider this centering to be okay. if not, if anybody out there has seen a better centered version of this, please let me know, because then that's a pretty big error from PSA. I still don't think this should be a 10, right? That centering is hard to justify, even if you're only looking at the player himself. I don't even think he's perfectly centered enough to be for a PSA 10. And yes, PSA 10s don't need to be perfect, but you guys sort of get the point that I'm trying to get to, right? Just the optics of this don't look very good. And it's things like this, right, that come back to the grievances and the issues people have with PSA, where they'll do a PSA 10 on this, and then you might get back a PSA 6, and you'd be like, what the heck, guys? Why is this a PSA 6? It's literally perfect. You crack it, you resubmit, you get a PSA 10. This kind of inconsistent approach that they've had over the years is, and over the last 2 to 3 years, is unacceptable. I've said this many, many times. There's nothing new. If you are a regular on the channel, you're probably sick of me saying it, but they don't have the excuse of the COVID volume anymore, right? Yes, they're still pumping out, 1 million cards a month or whatever it is, but their operations should be able to deal with that for now, because they've done that for many, many months. So the fact that you're still seeing these very basic errors creep through, which I think this is, some of you will correct me and say it's not, because they all look like this out of the factory set, but go look at some other cards they've graded. I just don't think you could sort of get away with volume being the reason they're making these mistakes anymore. They should be BAU pumping out 1 million cards a month, right? That's normal for them now. This stuff needs to be better. Let's hope it does get better in the near future. And the last thing I want to talk to this week actually is another good guy shout out. I feel like I talk about breakout cards all the time on my channel, because he does such fantastic work when it comes to spotting fake cards, trying to educate people within the hobby. He does card show vlogs, but like I always say, he does it from a unique perspective. He did a pretty cool, live stream with Peter, who's the CEO of SGC, talking through PCs and things like that. I thought it was a pretty unique in terms of the discussion with Peter. I've watched most of it, basically talking about, vintage cards and things like that. Typically when Peter gets interviewed by people, yes, he loves vintage cards himself, so he talks about them, but the conversation typically goes towards grading or modern cards, so on and so forth. There was a bit of that in this one as well, but given that, Ryan from Breakout Cards is, super passionate about this vintage stuff, and he's always finding really obscure things, I thought it was a really, really good chat. So if you're bored and you want to sit down and listen to something while you work out, or while you're on the bus to work, or the train to work, or the commute to work in general, whack this on, listen to it, and you get some pretty good insight, because it is pretty cool. We don't get enough of that sort of stuff within the hobby, right? True collectors, true people that are passionate about certain aspects, really niche things within the hobby that the rest of the sheep don't necessarily care about, me included, because I'm a sheep. I don't collect a whole lot of vintage stuff. I do really appreciate it though, so it's really good to see this sort of stuff from Breakout Cards, Ryan, once again. Now, if there's anything I missed this week, please share it down in the comments below. Like I said, it's pretty light, which is a good thing for the hobby. That fake beef stuff at the start of the video, let's hope we see something come from this, right? Because these guys have an opportunity now. Yes, it's just sports cards, it's pictures of men, nobody really cares about this sort of stuff in the real world, right? But whether it's real beef or not, whether they should have left it on the court is irrelevant. They've got an opportunity now to do something for charity. Let's hope they can sort of get together, put in a case each for free, give away free spots to randomize people, as the Sports Card Radio guys suggested, and do something pretty cool for the hobby. It's all you can sort of ask for. Again, not the end of the world if they don't, but it probably speaks of those individuals' characters based on some of the comments they've given, right? Whether or not they actually want to do it. So it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and I should say I'm on Team Blaze. Let's just clarify that. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, as I always say, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.